Welcome, and on behalf of Retail NZ, I'm very pleased to be joined here today by Bruce Cooper from Risk. This session today is going to cover off some practical issues around helping you and your teams manage difficult customer situations, perhaps some violence and aggression, which we all know has been on the rise in the retail sector. So by way of introduction, Bruce is the General Manager of Bespoke Security. He's got a long and stellar career in security training, and prior to that with the New Zealand Police. Bruce, thank you very much for being here with us today.
Thanks, Greg. It's a great pleasure to be here.
We're obviously hearing lots in the media about retail violence, retail aggression and so forth, and we're seeing in store that there's lots happening. What are you hearing from your customers?
Things have changed. I've been operating in this space for over 30 years and delivering training, and in the last few years there's been certainly a massive increase. If you look at statistics from some large retailers that are well publicised, the likes of the two big supermarket chains, they said that in the first 18 months of COVID coming to New Zealand, they had a 400% increase in what we call VAB, or violent and abusive behaviour, and that's been mirrored across other sectors or other parts of the retail sector, to the point where we're delivering training on a daily basis across the country for a wide range of retailers, both large and small, on how to better prepare their staff to stay safe.
Yeah. So what, in a practical sense, do you think, what's your advice for retailers here watching this video? If a customer exchange is getting heated, what's the best thing to say or do to diffuse that situation?
Look, you've got to get it in context, but if we talk firstly about what I would say normal public customers who are simply angry, frustrated, whether it's to do with masks, product quality, returns issues or service issues, then the key thing is when a person's venting and they're talking about how they feel, there's some simple strategies. One of them is be quiet and listen, because they want to be heard. So we have to give them a listening to before we say anything. That's the first step. The second thing is, once we've given them that opportunity, as long as they're only talking about how bad they feel or how bad the situation is, but they're not threatening to hurt anybody, then we should be seeking to de-escalate that by using some methodologies that we espouse in terms of a thing called play your aces. And that's about how we can acknowledge their emotion, how we can create some empathetic responses to find out what the real core issues are, to see if we can help solve the problem. So that's in one area. However, in circumstances where the person is actually threatening to do things to the store or the staff, or being really abusive toward the staff, we invoke a secondary response. We've tried the first one and it wasn't working, and it's got further. Don't give that encouragement or oxygen by continuing to speak. At that point, we're saying things like, I can see it's really important to you, but it's not okay to threaten me or the other staff, and if you continue to do that, we'll have to ask you to leave the store. So what we need is a number of strategies, and staff need to be really well prepared as to what they're going to say, how they're going to say it, where they're going to stand, and be ready for things if they do escalate, how to make themselves safe.
And what's your advice in terms of physical positioning, where people should stand and so forth?
So that's an interesting one, because if there are counters involved, if there maybe a point of sale or that kind of thing, but sometimes there won't be. And when a person is angry or upset and there's a conflict situation, sometimes the best thing to do, once we start getting some verbal interaction that's beginning to work, is to get the person to come with us and to move, to go somewhere else, because that tends to bring the body language back down and we get some more rapport happening, to get them to go somewhere with us. In a personal safety situation, that is that we're now perceiving that it's escalating, we want to put more distance between us and the other person. And so we teach some stances about what you can do with your hands and where you can go to withdraw to create more safe space. And in some environments that's going to mean, if it really escalates, putting something between you and the other person. That could be a shopping trolley, a parked car, a desk, a counter, a set of shelves, or whatever it is. But when we're still in the communication phase and we're a chance of de-escalating, we want to remove all of that so that we can see each other's body language, and we can provide great listening body language, which is opening up to them, giving them some good eye contact, and showing them that we want to listen, we want to try and solve the problem, and that it's important to us as well.
And sometimes, I'm hearing that there are situations where there are customers who are just wound up, really aggressive, and really not resolvable. They may not even know what it is that they're there to complain about. They're just unhappy with the world in general, and they're taking out their frustrations on retail staff. If there isn't an obvious resolution, what's your advice in managing those situations?
Look, there's a bit of complexity because we've got to get the context of that exactly right, but there are other exacerbating factors such as mental health issues, potentially drug use or illicit drugs, and also alcohol. So we need to know what looks normal in that store and what normal customers, how they operate, what they expect. And a lot of retailers get a lot of ongoing issues. Those who sell alcohol have the issues around their requirements under the law to sell alcohol. Those who are in higher risk environments, potentially for robbery and so on. So I guess that's about understanding the particular store, where that's at. Often people can be de-escalated, but sometimes if they can't and they're threatening, it's all about making yourself safe. Create more space, notify the other supervisor, someone else in the store, and politely, professionally, we're seeking to withdraw and ask the person to leave the store. And if there are any threats, call the police, and on all occasions, and to seek to get their response. And there's a varying response depending where you are in the country and what their availability is on the day. What you do need to get your staff to be able to do is be really good at dealing with this, because you can't always expect, in fact often you can expect that the police won't be there immediately, unless it's a very high level threat vis-a-vis weapons, robbery, that kind of thing. Otherwise they're going to have to deal with it themselves and get good at dealing with it.
Yeah. And obviously, like when you've got someone who's really angry in store and potentially wanting to lash out at a worker, that creates safety issues for other people in store, other staff and customers potentially as well. Have you got any tips for how to manage those people through the situation?
What it sure does, and I guess one of the issues there is that in most stores, other than the sole proprietor, there will be multiple staff available. And so sometimes it may fall upon the duty manager or the shift operator or someone else more senior to come to the support of a young, inexperienced staff member who's being really given a hard time by somebody. How we make that approach is really important. Don't stand right next to the other person, because you've just doubled the threat to the aggravated, upset person, and they might get really angry and get worse as a result. Come in on an angle and form effectively a triangle, which seek to be 2 arms lengths apart from the person, meaning that if they do get potentially violent, they've got to step in to strike, kick, punch, whatever. And coming in on the angle and introducing yourself and seeking to break that as a neutral referee, as it were, sometimes can work. And look, there are a lot of incredibly experienced people in retail doing a fantastic job of managing and resolving these issues, and we see them and they attend our training. But often they pick up 1 or 2 extra things themselves. But it's getting all of the other staff to that level is a real challenge, because if you say the wrong things to an upset, angry person, it's like pouring petrol on a fire.
And what are the sorts of things we should avoid to avoid escalating the situation?
Well, we shouldn't tell people to calm down or chill out, or that we're not going to help, or that, or be really condescending and say things like, "Oh, I know how you feel." Well, no, you don't, because the problem they've got today might only be 1% of the problems that they're experiencing in their life, and it's the other 99 things that have actually caused them to get to where they are now, angry, frustrated, upset, very short fuse. So the things that we should be saying are things like, what would you like us to do today? I can see that you're angry or upset about this. Or we may even seek to take that a step further and real empathy, only if it's true, but on the basis of what you've told me, I can understand why you're frustrated about this or how this has come to this point. I'd like to help. Is it okay if I ask some questions? Is it okay if I get some more information? Would it be okay if I get you to come with me, we sit down and have a look at the computer together, or look at the product and look to resolve this? Would that be okay? The reason I say that is, once we're seeking to get a connection with an angry, upset person, asking permission to take each of the next steps, and sometimes to paraphrase back what they've said, is a clear indication to that person that you're actually listening to what they're saying and that it's important to you as well.
Okay. And if someone is asking for an escalation path, if they're something they're demanding, they want to see the manager, you'd be suggesting that you oblige and call the manager over?
Look, absolutely. I think part of that in the retail context is working as a team. And sometimes we find that actually it may not be the manager, it might actually be another person who simply fits the bill with what they think they want the person in charge should look like. You can't fix the preconceived ideas or prejudices of a person who comes in. If they're not threatening to hurt people, but they're simply aggrieved and they want to talk to someone who's older or male or older or female or whatever, if you work together as a team, and some of our retail clients in their stores are terrifically good at doing this, where they kind of match the needs, they support each other and match the needs to be able to facilitate a conversation with the upset, angry customer to seek that de-escalation much more quickly. But look, if the person simply raises their voice, speaks more quickly and becomes emotional, well, guess what? That's what we all do when we get really angry and upset. They're not threatening to hurt anyone at this point. They just want to help get some acknowledgement that it's really important. How can you help us and what can you do to fix it? So saying the right words, doing the right things, a lot of things can be nipped in the bud and brought back. This is not necessarily true when you're talking about people like habitual thieves or people who are extraordinarily angry or affected by drugs. So that's where we have to have that escalation process to withdraw and make ourselves safe. But we should be trying in every instance to try to de-escalate if we can.
Yeah. Now, a lot of people, of course, don't know people who are on drugs. So what are the things you should be looking out for?
Well, look, alcohol's, let's start with that because it's so widely available and it's legal, but most people can tell really quickly when they get even a couple of metres away from a person who's intoxicated or significantly impaired by alcohol, and that is the strong chemical smell coming out of their mouth. That combined with the fact that they start to slur their words, glassy look in the eye, maybe slightly unsteady on the feet, tend to raise their voice, speak more quickly. And my advice when dealing with a person who's affected by alcohol in the retail context is treat them with kid gloves. Be friendly, keep your distance, smile, ask them if they're having a good day. Let's try and do it on the light side. And the reason for that is that if you try to bully a person affected by alcohol, it will invariably receive a really negative response and possibly a quick escalation to threats and violence. So that's alcohol. Other drugs, and the one that's probably of most concern to all of our clients and their staff is methamphetamine, because it's the ultimate form of stimulant. And so when people are affected by methamphetamine, if they come into the stores, their behaviour tends to be erratic. They can't stand still, they can't be quiet, they speak really quickly. Other things about them that will be quite obvious is in their appearance, sunken eyes, skeletal look on their face, maybe lesions on their face or their hands, they get the itchy and scratchy show thing happening. So folks that are aware of this when we deliver training, they all know who the people are locally who come in, who are regular methamphetamine users, because that behaviour is so profoundly different to other customers. And our advice around that when you're dealing with such people is maintain that space and that distance and don't try and control what's going on because they're quite unpredictable. But the bigger worry is when they come in and they're the same people who look the same, only when they come in and they aren't affected and maybe they haven't consumed for a few days, they'll tend to be very sullen, very negative, very depressed looking, and potentially very violent, very aggressive. So that's another thing for us to look at it's around that space and so on again. And I guess there's a rollover effect for this that a lot of the people involved, not all, but a number of people involved in theft on an ongoing basis from retail are affected by meth because that's how they seem to pay for their habit. And it makes them very dangerous.
Yeah, so look, if you see someone coming into store who is clearly under the influence, so to speak, how should you be managing them? Keep your distance from
Absolutely.
them. Should you be trying to sort of get them out the door again?
I don't think we've got any power to do it, and I don't think many retailers have got an appetite for doing that. But what we should be doing, and it introduces another point, and that is around staff safety, but also around loss prevention. Great loss prevention starts with great customer service. So everyone who comes into the store should be greeted when you can. The nearest staff member to that customer, greet, eye contact, smile, seek to get some engagement, make a positive comment, make a statement. Because it's during that time with their response, you're making an assessment about that person's current status, where they're at, what they say. And the message of, I'm right over here, if you need a hand with anything, I'd be more than happy to help, means one thing to a normal customer, great customer service, but to someone looking to do anything illegal, such as steal or other things, it means I'm watching, or they believe it means, I'm watching you and I can see you and I've spoken to you and I've got the eye contact and I know who you are. So I think it's often overlooked, but it's primarily the number one go-to thing. Not just at the entranceway to the store, but in the store. So staff that are stocking the shelves or doing other things, every time they turn, they see other people walking down the aisle, get the eye contact, greet them, talk to them, have those conversations repeatedly. What's really important is what they see the staff doing rather than what you see the person doing it. It's pretty hard to actually see a person stealing unless you're watching cameras. But if they know that the staff are really onto it, really attentive, great communicators, it makes it harder for them. They can't be anonymous, so it makes it much tougher.
Yeah, okay. And just finally, Bruce, I mean, obviously, I think everyone who works in retail or in any service industry has experienced the customer who just won't give up trying to prove a point, and you might be in a position where you genuinely can't help someone. They need to go away and talk to another agency, perhaps TMSD. Have you got any tips for just kind of closing that loop and helping that customer make a graceful exit?
Yeah, to disengage. Look, I think that's a really important one, and it can be, it's not dissimilar to dealing with thieves and so on as well, but I think what's really important is you give the person a fair hearing, great listening skills. We seek to manage conflict using play the aces, and it's a very prescribed process that we have. But there are times when, because of the person's behaviour or their unwillingness to listen or deal with the matter, that you're going to be asking them to leave. And you have a right as a retailer to ask the person to leave the store, and you can choose who shops in your store. In a similar vein, you have the ability to trespass people. And a lot of our clients have a lot of people on a trespass list. The tragedy at the moment is that a lot of people who are habitual thieves and very aggressive people are repeatedly going back to the same stores with what appears to be impunity because the police aren't turning up to do anything about it. But we've got to keep fighting the good fight, and that is when those folks come back into the store, make an approach, as you referred to earlier, at the door. Excuse me, you know you're not allowed, please leave. We're doing it from a distance, not aggressive, we're passive, but we're defending our position and asking them to leave the store, and ring the police and tell them every single time. Let's try and keep them out of the stores.
All right. Bruce, thank you very much for your time. Really great to hear that advice. And if anyone does need any additional information, we've got some great e-learning modules available on our website at retail.kiwi, and there's a discount for Retail NZ members as well. Bruce, thank you very much.
Thanks, Greg.
Yes.